Yes, and we're live.
Hello.
It's Thursday, March 26th, and you're tuned in to NEZ SEZ, a place where musicians can come together and inspire each other to play more.
Play
How about
more.
that?
Yeah.
Play more.
Nice.
We have a very special guest tonight. I'm David Nesdall, as you know. This is Ty Price. Hi, Ty.
Hey, Dave. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's good to see you. And I'm really excited to introduce our guest tonight, Eric Steckel.
Hey, guys.
Eric is a songwriter and a producer. He describes his music as blues metal. His music is unique, memorable, and full of blazing guitar fireworks. Eric released his first album, A Few Degrees Warmer, at the age of 12 years old, and has been enjoying success ever since. He's toured the world and performed in 28 countries with his signature KNAGGS guitar in tow. In fact, he has just recently returned from a European tour. His last album, Polyphonic Prayer, has received 5-star reviews from virtually every source that's listened, and we couldn't be happier that he decided to join us in a conversation tonight. Please join me in welcoming Eric Steckel.
Yeah.
Wow.
Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. What an introduction, man.
I know it's a lot.
I hope I can live up to that, man.
I think you already have. It's all
right,
good.
Good.
So how's everyone doing tonight? Let's say hello to some people in the chat, shall we? Fruitcake Tony, Mr. BHB Jr., Headstock Harem, Frank C., 6 Strings and 10 Fingers, Eduardo Marino Porto, Peter K is here, Chris Bevan, the chat is here, Joseph D'Angelo is here, Michael James, Caleb Rappaport, Nerd Halen, yeah. Our friend Caleb has a Van Halen tribute called Nerd Halen.
Nice.
They're out in LA, and it's quite eclectic. They dress up like nerds, and it's the whole thing. And they change during the show. They start out really nerdy, and then they get to be like cool looking by the end of the show.
Okay, I haven't seen it live, but maybe that sounds familiar. Maybe I've seen something online.
Yeah.
Maybe
You probably have. They're all over Instagram. Kelly is here. Who else is here? Let's see. Anyway, all right. So we'll say hello to more people as you're welcome, Caleb. Terry Himes is here. We'll say hello to more people as they come in. So what's up, man? How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing all right. I think I should have been in. If things didn't work out the way they worked out, I would have been packing up my gear in Vienna, Austria tonight.
Oh, wow.
Right. But you know what? We're making the best of it because I'm glad I'm here with you guys, man. This is gonna be fun.
Well, we're happy you're here as well.
Thank you.
You ain't kidding.
Thank you.
I've been kind of watching you very closely for the last 6 months, and I got to tell you, I have to apologize for taking so long to even know who you are and know about you.
That's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, it's to watch you play. It's a treat, and if you haven't seen Eric play, right after this show, don't do it during the show, but right after this show, go on YouTube and watch him do his thing because it's mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. Oh, it's my pleasure.
And it's very unique. It's very original. You very much have your own identity and your own voice with the instrument, and I look forward to diving in and understanding more about how you discovered all of those things. I mean, you recorded your first album at 12. I mean,
yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, that was wild, man. I mean, it's actually it gets more wild the older I get, because you have to remember that at the time I didn't understand the novelty effect, because when you're 12 or when you're like a little kid, you see the world through that lens, and that's all you know, and you don't understand why. Like, I remember not understanding why people thought it was so like adorable, that a kid was playing you know, a full-size guitar and playing the blues. Like, I didn't get why that was so odd to people or so unique. But now I'm 29 and I go, yeah, if I walked into a bar at 29 years old and saw a 12-year-old kid playing, you know, Clapton and Stevie Ray licks with two 50-year-olds backing him up, yeah, I would stop in my tracks as well. So I get it now. You know, I get why that was so unusual, and why it was this thing that everyone had to see. You know.
Well, what was it, Eric? I mean, what was the single biggest motivating factor for a 12-year-old to pick up a guitar and migrate toward blues music? What was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of things, but definitely first and foremost was my parents. So I'm an only child, so I was around my parents a lot. I'm still very close with them, and I was very close with them in those days as well. And basically, you know, this would have been, I was born in 90. So by the time it was, you know, 94, 95, 96, guitar music, the kind of stuff that I make, wasn't really super popular in the mainstream anymore. So if my parents had me just listening to the radio, like a lot of parents did in the 90s, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But because they had such great taste in music, and they had all these great records, and Van Halen records, and Stevie Ray Vaughan records, ZZ Top records, that's what I was exposed to from an early age. So I was extremely lucky, you know.
So that first guitar, Eric, I mean, what was the first one for you? I mean, what did you do to right out of the gate?
What guitarist or what guitar?
Yeah, what type of guitar, what type of sound, what type of, I mean, the blues is
right.
The blues is this wide, right? So
yeah.
Where did you fit into that?
Right. Well, in the beginning, what's cool is my influences in the beginning are the exact same as they are now. It really hasn't. It's expanded this way, but the top three guys are still my top three. So when I was, you know, a teenager, it was Gary Moore, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eddie Van Halen. And guess what? I'm 29, and it's still those three.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because being 29 years old, you could have just as easily said, yeah, you know, the Jonas Brothers. You know, who, you know,
right?
To be a Van Halen fan, to even really know who Van Halen is. I know. I mean, you're a guitar player, of course, you know who Van Halen is. But at that age, to like, you know, dinosaurs. Like it's amazing, you know. Steve Ray Vaughan, all those, you know, Gary Moore,
right?
Who knows Gary Moore anymore, other than us, you know, other than people like us.
It's a shame. It's like, you know, in names like you say a name like Rory Gallagher or Jeff Healey. These are names that if you're not in the scene, if you're not in the business, if you're not people like us, unfortunately, these are not names that regular people know, and that's sad, because it deserves to be different, but. I'm just lucky that I am in the know, because I feel like I'm part of. I feel like I get to experience something that people are missing out on, you know. And music to me, I understand that there are a lot of people out there that music to them is a very passive thing. It's like just ear candy on the way home from work, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, music is an active thing. It's like I want to be stopped in my tracks. I want music that makes me go like, whoa, I can't do anything right now except for listen to this song. And that's the kind of music that we enjoy and we love and we make, is music it requires you to be an active listener. You know, it's not just stuff you pop in on the way home from work. It's like you're in this thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's the way I've always been. Even from a very young age, my friends in school would listen to music that I thought was just so unintelligent, like just low information music, as I call it, like just so stupid, you know. Required no emotional intelligence to listen to it. And for me, it was like, I want to be part of this. I want to feel like somebody's grabbing my heart and ripping it out, man, you know.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Real quick, let's say hello to a couple more people here. John Beal 5150 is here. Stefano Franco, and Stefano Franco has a question. He says, Eric, why did you choose KNAGGS guitars?
Okay, yeah. So I had been, my chronological order of guitars is actually pretty simple because I'm not that old, so it's not that many. So I started in my early days. It was and you and I had talked about this last night a little bit, but I had saved up from the time I was about 11 to maybe 15. I had saved up along with the help of my dad. We were both, I would put money in for my gigs, and whatever I put in, he would sort of match. And after, 5 or 6 years, I had enough money to buy a pre-seat, like a vintage Fender Stratocaster, because I was a Stevie Ray Vaughan freak, and everything was just about getting a vintage Strat, getting a 60s Strat. That was my whole life. And I finally achieved that and got the guitar. It looked so good. It was such a beautiful looking guitar. The classic, 60s Strat look. 3-tone sunburst, mint green guard, L series, nice and worn in the back of the neck, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Played that guitar for many, many years. But what happened was, as I got older, the sound in my head that I wanted started to change a little bit. And it started to get a little more single cut, 24 3/4 humbuckery in my head. Okay. But I'm stuck with this, and stuck. Yeah, nobody's stuck with a 1965 Strat. But to be honest, I wasn't really digging it anymore. Not because of what it was, but just because I couldn't get the tone out of it that I was hearing in my head. So I was making my 2007 record, Feels Like Home, and the recording studio that I was recording at, the guy had a bunch of Tom Anderson Strats with it was single hum. So that was the first time that I really experienced that bridge humbucker thing, and I just flipped out. I was probably 16 years old, and I was like, oh my God, this is sustain, sustain. It was the thing that I had been searching for. And I was such a young kid. I didn't know all this stuff. I didn't know about gear. I was a young kid. So I ended up buying one of the guitars from the studio. I just wrote the guy a check and I said, I need to have this guitar. And he said, I'll give you a deal. So that was my Tom Anderson Cobra S. And I had that guitar for many years. And then Tom and Roy from Tom Anderson Guitar Works saw a video of me playing it and contacted me and said, we want to do, Tom Anderson doesn't do like full endorsement deals. Like They don't do signature models. Yep. But what they did was they said, we'll tell you what we want to do. We want to have you come here to Thousand Oaks, California. And we want to build you a guitar and we'll basically give it to you at cost. And with the return, which is you promote us and you promote us. So it was basically an endorsement. Yeah. Without saying the word, right? Yeah. So that was my second Tom Anderson. And then I ended up buying a few more and they made me a couple. And so I had this collection of Tom Andersons for years. So then it was 2016. I'm still living in LA at this time. And I had a friend from Spain, a guy named Tony Martinez, great guitar player. Good friend of mine. He said, hey, Eric, I'm in town. Can I hang out? Can we hang out and jam a little bit at your house? I said, yeah, come on over. So he brings two guitars. He brings an R9 Les Paul and a KNAGGS Kanai. And the KNAGGS Kanai that he brought was in Winter Solstice, which is a beautiful sort of faded blue, beautiful. Yeah. With a natural back, amazing guitar. Okay. So I had heard of KNAGGS, but I had never really played one. And honestly, at the time, I can say this because if Peter's watching, he'll laugh because this is true. I didn't give a shit because I was like, okay, look, man, I got Tom Anderson making me guitars. KNAGGS, I was like, whatever. It's just another boutique company. They're a dime a dozen. I really was like that at the time because I was just like, I was swimming in guitars. I had too many. So Tony gets up. We're outside on the patio. He gets up, goes into the house to use the bathroom, and I just grab his KNAGGS Kanai. And I'm like, let's see what this is all about. I grab the thing, I play a few notes, and the neck, and this is what Joe KNAGGS knows how to make a neck. This guitar played so good. I was like, man, I was wrong about NAGGS. These are something. These are special. So a few weeks later, I went on Reverb, and I didn't know Joe NAGGS. I didn't know Peter Wolf, and I'm not the kind of guy I'm not really pushy on the internet. Like, I don't email companies and say, yo, give me an endorsement. I'm not really that guy. So I went on Reverb and I bought a NAGGS Severn in like what do they call? No, not burnished orange. It was like I forget the exact name, but it was like an orange blood red.
I was watching you play that on YouTube today. Amazing looking guitar.
Yeah, beautiful.
It was almost metallic looking.
Yes, gorgeous. and I hope if somebody can chime in and remind me what the color was, because I didn't know at the time, but it was the only one they ever made in that color. If Peter or somebody that knows is watching, I hope they can tell me, because I'm just drawing a blank. But anyways, so I had the guitar for a couple days. It came, in from Reverb, whatever. I can't remember the store. Sorry for the guy who sold it to me. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But anyways, so the guitar came, and I did a 2 days after getting the guitar, I did a Facebook live feed showing people the guitar. Turns out that Peter Wolf watched the feed. Didn't know who he was, and I didn't know that he knew who I was. So basically, long story short, he gets a hold of my phone number. He calls me and says, hey, look, I run this NAGGS Guitars, and I see you have one of our Severns. What would you think about us doing something but for you? Now, at the time, I'm just thinking in my head, he's talking like Tom Anderson, like, just build me something that they already make, but just to my specifications, and just do a basic endorsement. So he says, you know what, Eric, let me call Joe about something and call you back in 5 minutes. I said, yeah, sure. Calls me back. He says, Eric, I talked to Joe. How would you feel about a signature model? And the rest is basically history. And we started with how it worked was Peter said, describe for me what of our current lineup you already dig. And I said, well, I really like your KNAGGS guitar, but I said I played one in Winter Solstice. I played one, but I said, it's kind of the perfect guitar for me, except it's too thin. And Peter said, you mean in sound? I said, no. I said, not in sound, but in just physicality. I said, it's a thin guitar. And I said, if I'm gonna go to for a single cut, I want it to be chunky, like a Les Paul. And he said, well, let me see if Joe can make a thick KNAGGS. And then he said, what else do you want? I said, well, I want dark, super dark ebony fretboard. I want the Morningstar inlays. And he said, what about the bridge? Now, keep in mind, NAGGS makes a bridge.
Mm-hmm. A great bridge.
A great bridge.
It is a great bridge.
Lots of harmonics.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And actually, to be honest, this is a weird thing to say, because, I'll explain this. This is weird to say because my guitar doesn't have this bridge, but Joe's bridge might be one of the best bridges in the world. It's really that good.
I agree. Yeah.
I'll explain why my guitar doesn't have that bridge. So anyways, so Peter says, what do you want for the bridge? You want the proprietary bridge? And I said, I don't know, because I said, I want this guitar to have a ton of bass. And he said, well, if bass is what you want, you're going to want to go with the Tone Pros. And I said, yeah, I think that's the way to go. And it really is a big difference for people out there that are wondering, would a bridge make it? Yes, it makes a huge difference. Yeah. If you want a guitar that has upper mids and high harmonics, you want the NAGGS bridge. If you want a guitar that does the chunk on the bottom, the chunky chugga stuff, then you're going to want the Tone Pros. So we went with that. And then my model does not come in a tier 3. It's only a tier 2 and a tier 1. So my model is I was going to say, unfortunately, it's one of the pricier ones of NAGGS.
It's a high-end guitar. It's just a high-end guitar. There's nothing.
Guitar.
Yeah. And it's well worth it. It's well worth it. I'm looking at one right now. I think, did I show it to you yesterday when we were on the phone?
You told me which one it is, and I know which one it is.
Oh man, geez, it's just ridiculous how nice it is. I have a picture of it right here. Hang on.
We're looking at the one in Dallas.
Oh boy.
The lemon,
that guitar right there.
Unburst.
the lemon burst with the candy pickups in it.
Yeah.
For almost $6,600.
Mm-hmm.
That's I'm selling a couple guitars just so I can.
Yeah. I can tell you that the coolest thing about doing it, it's been 2 years now that I've had a signature with NAGGS, and the coolest thing is that folks, I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten from people they sell their Les Pauls, man. Like they sell their R9s and R8s and whatever because, and I'm not saying it, those are great guitars, man. You know, there's great Les Pauls out there, but the difference is if you buy one of my guitars, you're getting the same, if not more thickness in tone, but with like 2 pounds less of the weight. So that's what's cool is like you're getting the same chunk, but you can do a 2 or 3 hour gig with it and your shoulder and your back isn't hurting. So that's one of the coolest things about the Steckel model, I guess. You know?
Yeah. So the Steckel all the Steckel models are sub 8 pounds.
Yeah, I think the heaviest one they ever made, and I actually have it. And I'm actually glad that I have it because I actually don't. Because I told Joe, I said, you know, one of the rules for my model is I want them to be 8 pounds or less. And what happened was they made one that turned out to be like 8.2 or 8.3, and I took it. It's my black one, my satin black one.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, it's actually one of my best sounding ones. But I took it because the whole point of the model was to be less than 8 pounds. That was like one of my stipulations, and it came in over. And I just figured, well, you know what? Don't sell it to the public. I'll take it.
And 8.2 is a great weight. It really is. You know.
Oh yeah, we're being real. We're like splitting hairs now.
Yeah, 8.2 is like that's a real good Les Paul.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I understand.
We're being real picky, but that's the point. I mean, part of what makes it my signature is the specs, and that was one of my sort of conditions. Was I just want it to be as close to 8 pounds or less as we can possibly get it. You know.
Right on.
And I know this candy right here, this particular one, this is 7.8, which is crazy light because also don't forget about this. So this is the regular Steckel, you know, thickness, but the neck, this is not the regular Steckel model neck. This is the candy neck, and what's different about that is we copied 100% the exact neck specs of the real candy.
And those of you that don't know what candy is, it's a vintage 1960 Les Paul that is very sought after. It's a beautiful guitar. It's owned by a gentleman, a certain gentleman, and it's been seen. I believe. Joe Bonamassa has used it. I think he's played it on a couple of gigs, and you might be able to see him play it on YouTube. A few people have played that guitar, and it's just an amazing sounding guitar. Amazing, beautiful guitar.
It lives in Australia, right?
Yeah, the guy who owns it, Paul Demek, a good friend of mine, he lives in Melbourne, and that's how the whole thing came about, is that he had been following me online for years, and then in May of 2019, I had a show in Melbourne, Australia, and he had messaged me a few days before the gig and said, "Hey, I'm Paul. You don't know me, but I've been a fan for a few years, been following you. I have a guitar that you probably might be interested in having a rip on," and he said, "I can bring it by the sound check if you want." And I said, I can do you one better. I said, we're already in Melbourne. I said, we're at a hotel here. I said, so why don't we meet at like a music store? And then what happened is then the music store so Paul called the music store. It's a place called Eastgate Music. And they said, let's make this into a thing. Let's make it like an Eric Steckel clinic, open it to the public, and we'll have candy there for the clinic. So it turned into like we made the whole day of it before my gig, and we had a nice little crowd, and I just sat there and played candy and talked about guitars and techniques and tones, and they filmed it. And I also had my Cobra Blue Racing Stripe signature NAGGS in the guitar rack next to candy. So after people left and the clinic was over, Paul and I are just shooting the breeze, whatever, talking about guitars, and I'm holding Candy. He grabs my Nags out of the stand, and the first thing he did, he put his hand around the neck. He looked at me and he goes, "Man, this neck," which is the same thing everybody does when they pick up a Joe Nags guitar. Joe Nags knows how to make a neck on a guitar. Unbelievable. So he looks at me and he goes, "Man, this neck," and we just kind of looked at each other, and there was this weird like understanding between me and Paul of like, we have something here. Let's try to make something out of this. So I had told him, like, I said to him, I said, well, you know what? I said, I'm going to email you when I go back to the States because I have an idea about something. And he said, yeah, sure. So I called Peter Wolf from NAGGS and told him the idea to see if he was cool with it. And he flipped out over the idea. He thought it was brilliant.
Sure.
So he said, okay, call Paul and see if he would, kind of lend us the guitar to kind of work with and get inspiration from. And Paul was a total gentleman, and he took the guitar completely apart. Now, some burst guys will tell you don't even want to take them apart. Some guys are so superstitious about guitars that they don't even want you opening them up. But Paul was cool. He opened the whole thing up, took everything apart, gave us dates, pots, readings, measurements, everything. Gave us everything about Candy to the point where Joe Naggs said, I got it. I can take it from here. And we made 12 of these Candy guitars, and I kept one, and we sold 11.
Very nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And this is this was the one that I picked just because it has a really cool top,
Yeah, great top.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they all played equally as well. But yeah, I can understand why.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all because the what's different. So the regular Eric Steckel signature model necks have evolved over the last 2 years. Based on two things: my own personal taste and also feedback from the clients, the customers.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually made the early Steckel. If you have an early serial number Steckel model, it's going to have a thicker neck than the ones that are being made right now. But where the Candy series is different is every neck is identical.
Mm-hmm. And how thin is it? Is it like the typical 60s slim taper, or is it a little thicker? Because there were the 1960 Les Pauls. There were three different types. The very early ones were still very much like 59s, but they were made in 60.
Well,
and
here's
then,
the thing. This actually is the actual Candy has a 59 neck, and I'll tell you why. It was re-necked by Gibson. So the original owner, I actually, Joe and I had Bonamassa and I had a long conversation about Candy, about all this stuff, because what happened was the original owner, the neck was broken. It's not an accident. The guitar was dropped or something. The neck broke in 1960. And then the guitar was sent back to Gibson, and they put a neck that they had from 59 on it. Mm-hmm. So technically, it's a 59 neck.
That's probably why that guitar sounds the way it sounds. It's incredible.
Right. So it's got what's cool about Candy is it's got that red of the 60 bursts in the color, but it's got the neck of a 59. So it's a little bit of a Frankenstein kind of. It's cool.
Awesome. I want to say hello to a couple of people. Johnny Bean is here. 7/8. My friend Jay. I want to thank those two guys because I have another show with those two guys that I do on Friday, and Johnny Bean's the kind of the MC, and I have to thank Johnny for actually. I've been doing that thing with him for over 5 years, and he's the reason why we're able to do this now. Why I know how to do this, because he's the guy that kind of originated this thing. And Jay is also one of our co-hosts on that show, and I just want to say hello to those guys. It's Doc Harum is here. Janice Lala is here. Stefano had said, okay, thanks for the answer. I hope to see you next time in Rome with Pier Angelo.
Yeah, that's the Mezza Barba amps guy. Yep.
Yeah. And real quick,
I actually would have been in Italy tomorrow.
Yeah, I saw that on your calendar.
Yeah, we would have been in the Milan area, but that was the worst hit area by all this stuff. So
right now you're
canceled.
Yeah, right now you're thankful you're in Raleigh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was Yeah, that was the worst hit. That gig was canceled actually before I even went to Europe to start the tour.
Oh, wow.
That gig was canceled. Really, yeah, that was. So we knew that one, but we didn't expect that. We didn't expect the thing to spread as quickly as it did. Like we thought that we were going to get through the tour. We thought that the only cancellation was going to be Italy. And then the big surprise was that we only got through 5 shows before we were shut down.
Right.
That was a bit of a kick in the teeth.
Our best wishes to everyone that's in Italy right now.
Absolutely.
Right.
My father's here. I just want to say hello to my father. Richie
Nice.
Nesdall's here. Hey, what's going on, Dad? Thanks for dropping in. Bent Rossum is here. And we have 33 people watching us right now. Anyone that has any questions for Eric, please ask away, and we'll get him to answer it. So,
Absolutely.
all right. So we started with the Strat. That was your first guitar.
Yes.
Then you went to Tom Anderson's. How was that with the Tom Anderson's? What was that like?
Well, that was a great transition to where I'm at now, because if you think about it chronologically, it makes a lot of sense. It's like you see me starting to get heavier, more modern. Like you can almost like visually track the progression of my mental view of tone. So the Andersons were cool because they still felt like my Strats, but they didn't sound like my Strat. And I mean that in a positive way. Like, you can totally get Strat tones with an Anderson, but I would always go for like I would always go for either the double humbucker, or if I had an SSH, I pretty much lived on the bridge pickup anyways. So it was basically a good transition to, they were still double cuts, of course, they're still Strats, but I was getting that thick sort of tone that was in my head. So, you close your eyes, it could be a Les Paul. You close your eyes and you listen to some of the solos on the Polyphonic Prayer record, which was my Anderson Angel, a lot of that. And you really can't tell that it's a Strat guitar. It could be a Les Paul. It could be either, So that was cool. And my relationship with Tom and Roy was and is great, and they're great guys. They make a beautiful product. And I certainly had no intention of ever stopping my use of Andersons. I think it was the Knaggs just really fell into my life. It was a total freak thing. I just, like I said, my buddy came over with his, and I just kind of had to chase that dragon. I was like, man, I played a few notes on his, and I just had to be a part of that scene. And that was cool. Oh, okay. I can see some of the comments now.
Yeah,
cool.
I just put it on there for you to see.
Nice.
So yeah, he's Ben Rossum says, Eric Steckel, you were the guitarist that got him into Knaggs, and he's got I think he's got a few of them.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that, because that's, that was what our whole, when Peter first approached me about doing a model with Knaggs, the whole idea was, they had some legendary cats like Larry Mitchell and Steve Stevens on the roster. And I think they were looking to just kind of round it out with a young dude that was, because Peter's taste in guitar is you gotta be good, man. Like Peter, he's a brutal German, man. He tells it like it is.
The truth.
And I say that with affection. I love the guy, but he's not. He knows what a good guitarist is and what a good guitarist isn't. Yeah. So he really he doesn't put chumps in his roster of. And there's other companies that what they'll do is they will, based on follower count or YouTube hits, they'll say, well, let's just bring this guy in because he might sell guitars for us. Peter is not that guy. He has to like the way you play. So when he approached me, it was like, look, Eric, we got great players already, and we want to just round it out with you. And I was like, that already was flattering, just that he wanted to bring me into the thing, So yeah. Oh, I guess there's a question here. How was it going from single coil to humbuckers? You know what? It was sweet relief. It was like I wasn't fighting anymore. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love a great single coil guitar player. Like, you listen to Texas Flood and Couldn't Stand the Weather, and you listen to Castles Made of Sand, and you listen to these great single coil tones. But that wasn't what my hands wanted to do. My hands wanted to bend a note and hold it for a while and get feedback and sustain. And so it was like, it was relieving.
Mm-hmm.
Best word I can come up with. Yeah.
That's awesome. Here's another question for you. Eric, whose tone just blew you away when you first heard them? Me, it was Eric Johnson.
Wow. I have two. When I heard Cold Day in Hell, which is on the After Hours record from Gary Moore. That tone on that song, well, that whole record, but particularly that song was like incredible. And I would say either I'm the One or Hot for Teacher, Eddie. Actually, you know what? Mean Street, to any of that stuff, man. Any of that stuff. Like when he hits the open G chord on Mean Street.
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of like, listen, there's guys that can't get that tone now. And we have like all the gear we could ever dream of, and people still can't get that tone. So those were a couple of my first like moments of, whoa, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that G chord, forget it.
Yeah, and it's not really even a G chord. It's just that.
It's just the two notes. It's just the two strings. Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
Who does that other than Eddie? It's great.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna get dinged back, by the way.
So Eric, you're playing guitar at 12. You're obviously writing songs at 12. You're recording a record at 12. You're playing out. You're playing live. You're playing blues festivals, and then in 2013, you meet John Mayhaw. What was that experience?
Right. It was actually, it was 2003. So I was.
I'm sorry, 2003.
Right. Yeah. So it was the very next year. So I was 13 years old. You're right. So basically how that went was, so in 2002, I put out the A Few Degrees Warmer record, which was, by the way, that was a live record. So my debut actually was live, and 0 overdubs. And for folks that are hearing this who haven't heard the record and are like, come on, 12-year-old kid, 0 overdubs, go listen to it, because you'll hear right away you'll realize I'm telling the truth, because you listen and you go, oh wait, yeah, this is, you can hear the glasses of the waitress, like it's raw. Like that record was just raw. So the fact that a 12-year-old kid is playing Clapton and SRV stuff on a live record, what happened was, and this was before social media,
right?
But still, the record, like, it kind of went like pre-viral, because it was so unusual and so unheard of that people in the blues community were like talking like, have you heard about this kid from Pennsylvania that did this live? He's like this little kid, but he's playing like a full-size guitar. It was like a real hit thing. And it was really the talk of the blues scene, especially the year that it came out. So what happened was that led to my dad getting a bunch of phone calls from blues festivals all over the country. Now, most of them were offering just opening slots because, I'm just a little kid, whatever. So there was a festival in Sarasota, Florida. Now, I still lived in Pennsylvania at this time. So there was the Sarasota Blues Festival. I contacted my father and said, we want to have your son open the 12 o'clock noon slot at our festival, 2003. And she said, the woman, Barbara Strauss, who ran the festival at the time, said, we don't have the full lineup yet, but we want to hire your son for the 60-minute 12 o'clock noon slot. And my dad said, okay, let's do it. So I take my band from Pennsylvania. We get into a van and with my parents, and we drive down there and we do the gig. And the lineup was, the headliner was John Mayall. Now, very lucky for me, and I got to know this when I actually toured with John the year later. John likes to get everywhere very early and be very prepared. That's why John is as successful financially as he is, because he's extremely smart and very practical and very logical. So it's probably 12:30 and I'm up on the stage doing my set. And I don't know this is going on. I hear all this later. So apparently John's tour bus pulls in behind the stage. And even though he wasn't on until 9 or 10 o'clock, he showed up to get his badges and his keys for the hotel room keys. So he gets off the bus, walks to the hospitality tent, and he hears me playing. But he can't see me because he's behind the stage. So he walks around. He says to his guitar player, Buddy Whittington, who's a great friend of mine, great guitar player. He says to Buddy, hey, I'm going to go check out this guy who's playing right now, just see what's up. So he walks around to the front of the stage, and what does he see? He sees a 4 foot tall little kid with a huge guitar, and he's just like, what the fuck? He couldn't believe it. Because he's hearing like Clapton licks coming out of like this little kid, you know? Yeah. So I'm on stage, and now I see him over there, and I was relatively aware of who John Mayall was, but it took me until recently to understand the magnitude of what that meant. Yeah. So, right. So the story goes that, and some of this is what I've been told. The story goes is that he walks back. I'm still playing. He walks back, and he says to the promoter woman, Barbara, he says, where's this kid's father? I want to speak to him. And Barbara says, calls my dad over. And John says, look, you might not know me. I'm John Mayall. And simply put, I want to take your son on tour. And this is all happening while I'm on stage. And I come off stage. I go to sign CDs. And after I'm done signing, my dad says, I have a surprise for you. John Mayall said he wants to take you on tour. And now there was, as cool as that was, there was still a bit of skepticism on the part of my whole family, because we're thinking, well, maybe he doesn't actually follow through. Fair enough, you know. Well, a week later, we go back to Pennsylvania, and there's a flight ticket from Mr. John Mayall in the inbox, and it was a flight from, I think it was like Philadelphia to Stockholm, Sweden, which was where the tour started. The first night was in Sweden, and all of a sudden I'm on a tour bus with John Mayall in Sweden,
learning songs.
Not even. Listen, this is how John works. John, there was no rehearsal, zero rehearsal. You know what the rehearsal was? It was the sound check of the first gig.
Of course.
And John basically says, here's how it's going to go. I'm going to call you up at this point of the show. We're going to do these songs. I think they were all in A, actually. I remember that. I think all of them were in A minor or something, just coincidentally. Yeah. And we did like 3 songs in the set, and then he called me up at the end for the encore as well. And then every night it was exactly the same. And at the end of the night, I would do this guitar battle with Buddy Whittington, who became a great friend of mine, actually, after that. And yeah, and then you know, I'm just traveling around playing with John, and then it really kind of concluded. So in 2005, so that was 2003, and then it continued for a while, and then in 2005, he flew me to LA. I was 15, and I played some lead guitar on his Road Dogs record, which is his 05 record. And then that was kind of the conclusion of my tenure with John, was 03 to 05, and we've kept in touch. He's still a mentor, but the thing about John is that's what you get. Like John's not gonna keep you. You be thankful for, if you get a year or two with John, you be thankful for that, and you savor it. Mm-hmm. And that's how he was, because Clapton was with John for only a few years, you know? Yeah. So yeah, so it's pretty cool.
It's amazing.
You gotta be the youngest blues breaker ever.
I am, yeah.
Can you imagine you're a blues breaker? It's insane.
Yeah, and John, because Clapton was 17 and I was 13.
Yeah. Wow. Right. Mm-hmm. So my friend Peter K says, what about the Mezza-Barba amps? What are they like?
Yeah. Oh man, they're great. The mid-range of the Mezza-Barbas is like, you know, the word I would use is it's juicy. I know people are like, well, what does that mean? Yeah. Well, if you play one, you'll understand. It just feels like the way you want an amp to feel, Like when you're playing a guitar into a great amp, it's not just what you're hearing, it's also what you're feeling like under your fingertips. And the Mezzobarbas give you that rewarding feeling. Like whatever you give the amp, it gives you back. And I'm no stranger to high gain. I would say, and I don't mean this arrogantly or anything, it's just a fact. I've pretty much played every high gain amp that's ever been made because I'm a gain enthusiast, connoisseur. And the Mezzobarbas, I mean, they pretty much tick all the boxes because they're chunky, they're loud, they're heavy, but they also have a sweet mid-range. Almost imagine a Dumble, but with like that you can actually use in like metal.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like
Sure.
Dumble amps have the sweetness, but they have no bottom. Like they fart out like crazy. For any kind of heavy music. Like if you're doing like Robin Ford's, it's great. But if you're trying to play heavy like rock with a Dumble, it's not really going to hold up. But so imagine that sweetness of a Dumble, but actually having the bottom. That's how I would describe the Mezzobarba amps. Yeah.
Wow.
And you know what? I want to also say this because I see a lot of people on the internet like saying, oh, they're like a Soldano SLO 100. Yeah. I mean, I actually disagree. I mean, I had an SLO 100 and it was cool, but very dry. The Mezzobarbas are more liquid. The sustain is more fluid. They're definitely more easy to play than an SLO.
I think an SLO is also it's a little buzzsaw sounding. It's very 5150 like, which makes sense because the 51, the PV stole.
Totally.
Stole the whole Soldano thing, but not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's a little buzzsaw.
I've heard guys get amazing tones out of SLOs that I go, wow, I'm jealous because it never happened with me. But for me, the Mezzobarba, when people say, oh, they're like an SLO, I'm like, well, I'm living proof that they're better because I had an SLO and I actually sold it years ago because it just didn't get me that. It didn't have that rewarding feeling under the fingertips. And the Mezzobarbas, any of the models, the Trinity or the M0, whatever, the gain is very sweet. It's very pleasant to the ear. I can tell you because in October, I was the guest of honor at the Los Angeles Amp Show, and I sat in front of a wall of Mezzobarbas for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, straight, nonstop, with no ear protection, no earplugs, and it was fine.
That's amazing
because the frequency wasn't hurting. But then I would walk to other people's booths. I'm not going to say any names, but I walk to other people's booths and I'd be like doing this, like kind of wincing, like in front of their cabinets.
Yeah, it hurts.
And I never did that with the Mezzobarba stuff. I never was wincing. Even as loud as they turned it, I never was like doing this. So, yeah.
Wow. Eric, I know that you have a history with Bogner cabinets.
Yep.
Well, are you playing the Mezzobarbas through Mezzobarba cabinets? Are you playing them through Bogner cabinets? What type of speakers are you using?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was using Bogner and diesel amps, I would always run a Bogner. My cab of choice during those days was always a straight front 412 Bogner with V30s. I also had an old Bogner cabinet that was the rear loaded one with the X pattern, so it was a 75 and a 30.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all great, and they're great cabs. Still, of course, are great. But when I switched to Mezzobarba amps, I first tried the Mezzobarba head into my Bogner cab, and it sounded great. And I said to Pierangelo, I said, well, I don't really need cabs, but I was like, if you don't mind sending me one of your 412s with greenbacks, I'd like to see, maybe I like that better. And he said, well, Eric, I can do that because I have one extra here that I'm not using. So he sent me one of his cabs with the greenbacks, and I was like, yeah, this is for his amps. The greenbacks were nice. So now I've just switched all the way over to just everything Mezzobarba.
Got it.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's also nice to look at that.
Yeah.
Right. It's also the visual aspect of, because his amps are really, he's got the red piping on the cab and the black, and it matches, and it's really a nice visual thing. And so that was cool as well, just to not have the conflicting brands on stage as well. So that was cool.
That's great. Do you know if there's any place to get those here in the States? Like, can you buy them out here?
Yeah, I'm not, I'm going to miss a few. I know that there's a place called Axe Palace has Mezzabarbas. I know that there's a place right around here called Destroy All Guitars.
Destroy All Guitars. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
They got them. I think Matt's Music, I think there are some, I think, I think there's a place in California. Well, I know for sure their American distributor is in Van Nuys, California, so you can definitely just order it from right there. But as far as dealers, I think there is a dealer in California as well. I can't off the top of my head, don't remember, but yeah. But their distributor for America is in Van Nuys, LA area. So, yeah.
Ben Rossum, yeah, you're right. I believe the Music Zoo here in Long Island as well.
Okay.
Now that I think about it, yeah, you're right. I have seen them there. I don't think they have anything in stock. They probably would have to order it.
That's it. Yeah. So there's probably situations where, because Mezzabarba is what I would call Uber boutique. That's like, Mezzabarba is almost like ordering a Bugatti or a Ferrari. I mean, it's like you're getting up there. That's really that's. I don't want to say custom, because it's not like he's sitting there tweaking the circuits for somebody, but it is custom in the sense that if you want him to make you a snakeskin one or one with LEDs that are this color, that he will do that. So it is somewhat custom, yes. So
they're kind of made to order.
Yeah, I would say they're more made to order than just flooding a showroom with a bunch of them. Yeah.
It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So do you have any more of your guitars there that you'd like to show us?
Yeah, let's see what I got. So obviously, if folks are just tuning in, so this is the Candy. I'll get as close as I can here.
Yeah,
see this one. And this was the first time, and I'm proud of this. I was the guy who convinced. NAGGS had never done a relic ever. And I was the guy who twisted their arm. Well, because this guitar had to be relics, because it had to look like the real Candy Burst, which was quite beat up, quite worn. So then after doing these Candy relics, then customers were like, man, you guys nailed the relic on that. It's so tasteful. So now they're doing some more relics for other models and things. I think I have my KNAGGS J here. Let me show you guys that.
Yes, please.
Dave, the Candy is incredible.
I know. I was looking. I was looking all day to see if anyone had one for sale.
I saw one. There was a Candy today that sold in Belgium.
It sold. Yes, it sold to a guy today. I saw that too.
Yeah. So this is okay. So this is their KNAGGS J. Now, just to explain to people what's going on here. So you can order this guitar in virtually any combination, and I mean pickups, finishes, relic, non-relic. So I just went for a really traditional route with just single bridge humbucker and tobacco burst, but that's just one way. That's one of 1,000 ways you could order this guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can do P90s. You can do a combination. You can do relic. This is non-relic, but you can do a relic.
We both ordered KNAGGS J's. I have a TV yellow relic 1 P90 on the way.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do a nice. Their TV yellow. To be honest, if I would have seen the TV yellow before I ordered mine, I might have went for that actually.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Nice.
This guitar, what's funny about these J's is because they're like a junior, they're incredibly light, scary light, and the necks are a little skinnier than like on one of the KNAGGS or something. So this guitar actually, I almost need like a speed bump with this thing, because this guitar plays incredibly fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's too easy. This guitar is too easy to play. It's scary.
How thick is the neck on that? Would you say it's as thick as your model, or
No.
thicker?
No. Well, it's different. So my model, the Steckel neck has actually, that's funny, Steckel neck. It just sounds weird. Yeah. The neck on the Steckel guitars has the least amount of taper of any NAGGS. So what I mean by that is, so the Steve Stevens neck up here is kind of thin and then super fat down here. Yeah. Whereas mine, I like a really even taper neck. So it's pretty much just what it is here is basically what it is here. Mm-hmm. So that's what separates my model from a lot of the other NAGGS models. So this neck is more traditional NAGGS neck where it does expand, you know.
Nice. Yeah. I can't wait to get, I'm like jonesing to get mine.
Well, it's like, it's so light. I mean, I can't even, all I can say to people that don't have one, you won't believe how light it is. You won't believe it.
Is the body as thin as a regular Kanai, or is it thicker?
I'm looking at, this is thinner. Yeah, because I have candy right here. This is thinner. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think they had, because it's a much smaller body too. So I think it would have looked weird if it was the thickness of the regular Kanai, but a smaller. So it's somewhere in between, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so at least it's thicker than a regular Kanai,
but
not as thick.
Yeah, it's in between.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can tell by just looking at it. Yeah, definitely thicker than a regular Kanai.
It feels right. I mean, it's like, you know, if I would have picked this guitar up, if my buddy from Spain would have had a guitar of this thickness, I don't think I would have been as bothered by it. You know, I think the regular Kanai is quite thin, you know, in physicality, and that's why I was so adamant of making a thicker guitar. But this is nice. This is good.
It's very cool.
Yeah. And by the way, for folks who are watching who are also curious just about NAGGS and stuff, I recently played a buddy of mine, actually the guy who is the distributor of Mesobarb amps in America, a guy named JP Cervoni, the guy in Van Nuys that I was talking about. He has a NAGGS, I think it's a Keya, Keya. And I played his. It's an all mahogany guitar, kind of a little bit like an SG.
Yeah.
And his is all mahogany with the NAGGS, the Joe NAGGS bridge. I have never heard a guitar do Van Halen better than that freaking guitar. I mean, it's scary good. Scary good. Oh, cool. So for folks who want a NAGGS to get that Van Halen tone, get yourself a Keya with the NAGGS bridge, and you'll get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. Very cool.
I've not played one of those.
It's cool. I hadn't. It's the look of it is not really my style. So I would have never, if JP didn't have one, I would have probably never been around one.
Yeah.
But I actually I picked it up just at his house back in January, and I was like, I just couldn't put it down. I literally couldn't put it down. He had to actually tell me, hey man, I gotta help my wife out in the kitchen here. You gotta go, like you gotta leave, you know.
Oh man,
I couldn't put the guitar down. I wouldn't leave his studio, you know. So it's that good. It's that good. Yeah.
Very cool.
I think I can tell you guys one more. I think I have my Cobra stripe around here somewhere. I'll show you that in a second.
Yeah, please do.
I love that guitar.
That one's covered in filth because I used that on the tour. So
I love that guitar.
It's so cool. Very cool. That J. Yes.
Yeah, you can't wait for the postman to ring the bell with your J in his hand, right?
Yeah. It's just unfortunate that that NAGGS is closed right now.
Well, fingers crossed, Dave.
We all have to wait a little bit.
We do have to wait. Yeah.
That's okay. Let's while he's getting that guitar, let's see what everyone else has to say. Hey Ben Coombs. Hey David Ennis, how you doing? Thomas Santiago's here. Let's see. Oh, there's the guitar. Oh my God.
Yeah, here it is.
Look at that.
So what's cool about this is the only gloss finish Steckel that, not that we've ever made, but that I personally possess, because I was a big fan of the satin, the matte.
Yeah.
And when I had told Joe that I wanted one of these Cobra, metallic paint guitars, he said, we could make it matte, but he said, you're going to be disappointed. He said, this kind of guitar, he said, with this metallic paint, he said, you got to go gloss. And I said, well, you're the man. So yeah, sure. Do what you want. And he made this, and I'm glad I listened to him, because if you look at just how the beauty of this in the light, like just when you do this, just the different shades of blue that emerge and sort of purple, and it's just great. And this one has I don't know how well this will come up on the iPhone, but it's got the onyx, the stained onyx binding.
That's beautiful.
Maybe you can see.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, so it's cool. And this, it's got the back is all blue, and this has the black tuning buttons and the blue paint in the back. So yeah, this is a great. This is kind of my go-to lately on tour, because I don't know, it just it looks cool on stage. It
looks cool. It would look cool in my house.
Actually, it looks cool anyway. You're right. Yeah, I like this. I've been liking this one on stage a lot lately, because what's cool about this is in different lighting at different venues, different photographers, different lenses, this guitar photographs differently every single night. And I can't really tell you why. I guess just the way the paint is. I've seen this guitar look baby blue. I've seen it look purple. I've seen it, it's amazing. So this one's fun. It's got a good neck. This has got the more current Steckel neck profile.
Mm-hmm.
The ones made after about May or June of 2019 have a slightly thinner neck. So this one's got the thinner neck.
Beautiful. And that was loaded with Saturday night specials?
Yeah.
So what's your history with that pickup, Eric? I mean, I know that's in several of your guitar. I mean, what do you like about those? So
basically how that worked was when we first did the prototype of the Eric Steckel model back in late 2017, before it was even announced to the public or anything, they made the guitar, and we not forgot, but we just didn't really talk about what pickups I wanted in it yet. We were just focused mainly on like the specs of just the instrument itself. So Peter was like, he called me and he goes, well, Joe finished your prototype. And he goes, what should we load it with? And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, we didn't talk pickups yet. And I said, what do you have laying around? He goes, well, we got a few bare knuckle mules. And I knew those pickups. I had played them on occasion. So I said, okay, put the mules in. Yeah. So he sends me the prototype with the mules. And the guitar was great. The neck was awesome. It felt great. It was 8 pounds. It was the sunflower burst matte. I was like, it looked fucking great. So I was cool with everything. But then, so I put a few videos up with that guitar, and just telling people like, hey, this is a prototype of what may become a model for me. And basically how this went was a guy named Blue Wilding, who at the time worked.
I know Blue Wilding very well.
You know Blue? All right, cool.
Yeah, I worked at Manny's Music with him in the 90s.
Small world. So yeah, so I didn't realize this at the time, but Blue was following me on social media, and I didn't know him. I had never met him. Didn't know he worked with Duncan. So he saw one of my videos with this prototype, and he called Peter, and he said, Peter, he said, first of all, guitar looks great. Eric sounds great. He said, but I just want to say, I've noticed that Eric was going for some pinch harmonics, and they weren't really popping out the way I think Eric wanted them to. And he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong. He was essentially saying, with a different pickup, I think it would suit Eric's hands and playing a little better. And Peter was like, okay, sure. What do you have in mind? And he said, well, let me send you this pickup we make called the Saturday Night Special. And he said, send one to Eric and tell Eric to, give you your thoughts. So we swapped out the pickups. We put the Saturday nights in, and yeah, he was right. It was like kind of like the Mule, but it had a little more balls. And when I went for the harmonic, it popped out. And the rest is history.
That's awesome. Now, are those pickups in all of your guitars other than the Candy?
Correct. So the reason why we did the Candy pickups was, so we had this special guitar. We had this special thing, 11 guitars worldwide, limited edition, more research and development, more expensive guitar, way more involved, blah, blah, blah. So one of my long phone calls with Peter, I said, Peter, I said, we went to all this length to nail the vibe and the essence of Candy. We can't just slap anything in there. He said, yeah, you're right. And he said, what do you want to do about that? And he said, you want to put just like a PAF clone in there? And I said, well, we could. I said, or I could call Paul and see if he wouldn't mind letting Duncan actually reverse engineer the actual Candy pickups.
Wow.
So I called Paul, who at this point, like I said, he's a huge fan. So that probably bought me a little leverage. And I said, look, Paul, I said, you've already been super cool, but I said, I have one more request. Would you be willing to let us basically borrow, the pickups and reverse engineer them? And he said, who's going to do it? I said, Seymour Duncan. And I said, and he said, literally? I said, yeah, literally. Like I said, Seymour and MJ are going to sit there and work on this. And he goes, it would be an honor. So he basically said, yeah, he said, I'll send you readings and I'll send you all the pot dates and codes. And he said, I can even send you the pickup if you need it. And so Seymour got to work and was contacting, MJ was contacting Peter. I was contacting Seymour. It was this big thing, went around, and finally they had the pickup. And Seymour and MJ said, look, this thing is about as close as you're ever going to get. And I said, cool, let's try them out. And we put them into my prototype, and I plugged into the Mesobarba Trinity amp at the NAGGS factory. And there's a video of this actually online from back in August. And I just played an A chord, and I was like, yep, there it is. There it is. And it was special. I knew it was special. And then that was it. So, and now Duncan, if Duncan's factories weren't closed right now because of the virus, they'd actually they're starting to make the pickups aftermarket now.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
Right. So basically what's going to happen is it's already been Kevin, the guy from PR, and I can't remember the woman's name. I'm so bad with names. But they're already like working on the PR part of this, and it's going to be a signature pickup called Candy with also my name. And probably as soon as they get the factory open again, we're going to start making them and they'll be available.
Oh, sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'll be putting those in a couple of guitars.
One more thing to buy.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what's good about this? And Peter and I had long, Peter and I, we're great friends. We talk about everything, on the phone. But one of the things we had a long conversation about was about these pickups, because here's the thing. We're well aware that not everyone is in a position to buy a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 guitar. And we don't want to be like snobbish about it. So the whole idea was, okay, look, let's say you missed out on the Candy thing, and they, because they sold in like an hour. And let's say you missed out on whatever. And let's say you like the tone of those guitars, but you're not in a position to buy a guitar with the pickups already in them, whatever. We figured that, well, look, it's not the same as having a NAGGS with Candy pickups in it, but it gives you a little taste. It gives you're getting your feet wet, at least with that tone for probably $250 or something. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very nice.
It makes sense, you know. And if you put them in a good Les Paul, you're almost there. You know, it's,
right. You're getting it. You're getting in the ballpark. You know, and that was the whole idea, was to give people to not like exclude someone from the vibe just because of financial reasons. Now, look, you know, the playability of whatever guitar you put it in, you know, that's not going to improve the intonation, whatever, you know, that the weight, all the looks, but it'll at least help you get closer to the vibe you're hearing in my videos, etc. So, you know.
Plus, I mean, you got to have the hands. Without your hands, it's not sounding the same
There
either.
you go. That's true. That's true. It starts there, man.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, the songwriting too, you know, like on Eric, like on your last record, Polyphonic Prayer,
Mm-hmm.
you played on it, obviously. You wrote it, you produced it.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for you? I know you've got a new record that you're working on. Wait a minute. And on Polyphonic Prayer, you played all the instruments except the drums, right?
Right. And that's the same as the new one too. So, okay. So basically Grandview Drive is my 2020 album. It's done. It's actually been done. But so for folks who are watching who might be confused about the thing, I'll kind of explain what's going on. So the album was recorded, mixed, and mastered in the month of December. Then in January, I went to NAMM, was super busy out in LA doing not only NAMM stuff, but just various promotional things for Meza Barba, KNAGGS, Duncan, etc. Then the release was basically my March Europe tour. Was like the first sort of was the soft release of the record, and the plan was after this Europe tour, I come back to the States and we release the album then worldwide, North America, Australia, everything. And we even had dates on the calendar that this was going to happen. And then coronavirus entered our lives, and the tour was canceled. I had to fly back. I had to rush to fly back to the States before the border got closed and before airlines would, you know, and all of our dates that we had for this release were just, it was just all of a sudden it was just ripped up. So what's going on? This is what's going on now. Right now, not just in this country, but in the world, people are sort of in a little bit of a panicked sort of state, and people are thinking about the essentials right now, food and all that, and money. So me and my people basically decided that, you know, maybe just for ethical reasons, maybe right now is not the greatest time to drop the official release because people have some other things on their mind, but it'll be very soon, because I think if we all kind of just work through this thing will start to die down and people will go back to normal again, and we'll be thinking about music again very soon, and that's when I will release it. So
great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Looking forward to that. So
Hey,
what is your songwriting process like, Eric? I mean, can you give us some insight as to where you begin and how you end up?
Well, I can tell you this. This Grandview Drive record is really special because this was the first. I can't even count how many. This is my 11th record, I think. And this is the first time I've ever written songs specifically about certain human beings in my life. Like these songs, this was like authentic songwriting to the core. And what I mean by that is, if you listen to my other records, we'll use some examples of songs. Like you talk about the song Tennessee from the last record.
Love it.
That's about an abstract concept. That song I wrote that song in LA, but it was because I was like stuck in traffic in LA on the 405, and I was just like, man, I was envisioning summertime in Franklin, Tennessee, driving a fast car on wide open curvy roads, you know, and so that was a song about an abstract feeling, an abstract concept that anyone can kind of relate to. And other songs like Feels Like Home is about just a feeling, you know. So that's the way I wrote for many years. It was not, I was always a little afraid to be real specific in my songwriting, you know, and really talk about people. And then I got into a fucked up relationship, and I tell you this, it made for the absolute best songwriting of my career so far.
Interesting.
There's even one song. So the whole album, there's two covers. I did a Marshall Tucker, Can't You See, and I did a Michael Burks song, which we'll talk about that in a second. But all the other songs are original, and all those original songs on this album are about someone. And one of them in particular, I actually wrote at a table at the Rainbow Room in Hollywood, while the girl I was with was actually basically cheating on me in that exact moment. I was sitting there, she was out front, you know, flirting with some other guy, and left her purse and her jacket next to me. And I, instead of exploding and getting pissed off, I sat there with my phone and I wrote these lyrics, and it's probably the best song on the record. This album is very special because it's so real, it's so honest, and it's just so like open. And I think people are going to really feel that. And so I can't wait to get it out, man. I'm thrilled. I'm excited.
That's
so
awesome.
Michael Burks, you've covered Michael Burks in the past.
Yes. So
And
for folks that are really, really familiar with my work, they'll know that for the last like 3 or 4 records, I do a Michael Burks cover on like every record for the last like 6-7 years. It started with Empty Promises in 2012, and then it became a theme. So then I did, Make It Rain on the last record, and then on this record I did a song called Since I've Been Loving You. Not the Led Zeppelin song, but it's the same title, but it's a Michael Burks blues ballad. And what's cool about this is so in 2012, Michael Burks died in Belgium while he was on tour. And I had already been doing the song Empty Promises in my set, but I never thought to really record it because, it was a good song, but it just didn't seem like a song I'd put on a record. But then he died a week before I went into the studio to record my 2012 Dismantle the Sun album. So I'm in the studio, and we didn't have this on the set list for the record, but I'm sitting down at the piano, just jamming with the guys in the band. And I start playing on piano the chords to Empty Promises, and the drummer starts playing, bass player, and the engineer is like recording it without me knowing. And I wasn't singing, but I was just playing, I was playing the basic foundation of the song. And the engineer basically says, come in here and check this out. You guys got to hear this. So we came in, and it was killer. And I put the organ on it. I put the vocals on it, put a solo in the middle and the end. And that's Empty Promise. That's what you hear on the record. It was a rehearsal.
Nice.
And what happened with that was Bobby Burks, Michael's wife, wrote to me after that and said, I want to thank you for not only continuing Michael's legacy, but also the fact that she gets royalties from radio play or sales of that song and that record. And, I developed a little bit of a friendship with her. And so now it's just this running thing where I put a Michael Burks song on my records, and she gets a little bit of money. So.
Very
That's
nice.
very cool.
Yeah, very nice. When you're recording a solo on your record and the red light comes on, have you charted something previously? So you're just going for it. You see the red light, you go for it.
100% improv, always. And when I say 100%, I mean I don't even have like a clue. I mean, it's just like, let's just do this. Every other part of the album is like, not charted on paper, but every other part of the album is I have a plan.
Sure.
But the solos, the solos are totally just, let's do this. And like I told you last night, there is no solo on any Eric Steckel record ever that was more than the second take, because as I told you last night as well, if it goes beyond the second take and I'm not liking it, I put the guitar down and I either go for a little walk or I go to a different song. I regroup, because what that tells me is it's not happening. It's not what I'm doing it's not getting me excited. Mm-hmm. So, so it's never more than 2 takes, ever.
So after you've done the record and you're ready to go on the road and you do these songs live, do you go back and relearn your solos, or do you do them off the cuff live?
Yeah. So what we do live is
great question.
And what's cool about live is the songs even evolve. Like if you listen to live versions of Tennessee versus like the studio version, you'll hear you'll hear changes. Not big ones, but you'll hear some subtle changes. What I tell my guys is, look, we keep the skeleton of the song, we keep the lyrics, we keep the general thing, the general vibe of the tune. But besides that, there's nothing off limits. We can take this thing wherever we want to take it, and we usually do.
That's great.
Nice.
That's great. That's what I like to hear, because generally I like to hear different stuff on live records, even if it's subtle, because I listen for it. I'm like, sounds just like a record. I don't, and I love live records just because they're live and they should be a little bit different. And I love that about your songs and the way you play live. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. And especially for this genre. I mean, I understand in modern country and modern pop music, I understand that demographic is looking to basically the songs they sing along to in their truck or their car. They want to be able to go drink a beer and hear that played back to them in a concert setting. I get that. But in what I do, the people that come to shows like mine are not looking for that. They're looking to experience something that they didn't hear on the record. So that's knowing your audience is a big part of the business.
Well, that's the beauty of the blues, right? I mean, you have the ability to emote whatever that current feeling is. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's the beauty of the genre.
Reading a room, reading a venue, reading a vibe, reading a room, reading an audience. That is way more important than chops, and it will always be. I mean, like, you think about some of the great showmen of our time. You think about James Brown. You think about Frank Sinatra. You think just people that are showmen, entertainers. What they were great at is reading the room and reacting to what is being given to them, those are the kind of people I try to emulate, because I never ever use a set list on a tour. I don't have set lists. I don't, and if I do have one on the floor, we don't follow it. We don't stick to it.
That's cool.
And the reason is because, let's say on the set list you have a ballad as track 3, but the crowd is all hyped up and they're all going nuts. Well, let's keep them up for a while before we bring it down, or vice versa. You might have a crowd that's a little bit older and maybe they're sitting down, maybe there's tablecloths and a candle and it's a little more of a corporate setting. Maybe you want to give them a ballad on track 3, let them so it's all about that knowledge of reading your environment. And some bands and some artists, they don't do that. They just full steam ahead, so. Yeah.
So my good buddy John Mancuda asks a question for the guest. Top 3 artists you'd like to record with?
Okay. Actually, I got 2 right off the bat. Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree.
Absolutely.
A genius. He's actually a genius. And Dan Huff from the band Giant.
Monster player. Sure. Great songwriter. Good producer.
Wow. Number 3. Oh, man. Wow. Those first 2 were easy. Top 3. Well, you know what? Actually, no, because Eddie to me is like, it's like he's like a god to me. So it's almost like I want to let that just be, because I have so many moments of where I've been fortunate to meet a lot of my heroes. And let me tell you something. I hope this isn't a big downer to people watching, but sometimes you don't want to meet your heroes because sometimes you actually the way you held them is better than sometimes when you actually meet them. I don't want to. I'm not going to say the name, but in spring of 2019, I actually got to meet one of my heroes, a producer, and the guy is somebody that I've been a fan of for like a decade, and I actually walked away feeling disappointed because he wasn't quite as the guy that I thought maybe he was going to be. So sometimes when someone's too much of a god, I like to just kind of let that exist, you know?
Yeah, I get it. Totally get that.
To be honest, though, I am having trouble coming up with number 3. I'm sorry to John.
Well, you can think about it. You can, and while you're thinking about that, we're going to talk about this real quick. So we're going to have some giveaways. I'm not going to say when because, quite frankly, I'm not sure when. It might be in a month. It could be a little sooner. We don't know. But on this show, we're going to have some giveaways, and the way you'll be eligible to win is you have to subscribe to this channel. You have to subscribe to the David Nesdall channel. And shall we tell them what some of these giveaways are, Ty?
Sure. Tell them.
Well, we're going to have a bunch of nostalgic VIP Eat 'em and Smile backstage VIP passes that were unused. You can't use them anymore. Sorry, but they're cool little nostalgic things. We're going to have a TC Electronics digital delay, which I think is cool, pedal. We're going to have a TC Electronics Ditto Looper signed by Larry Mitchell.
Very nice.
And on next week's show, Larry will be on the show, and he'll be giving a demonstration on how to use a Ditto Looper as well.
So you can make music with a looper in your living room during the quarantine.
That's right. That's right. Now, this is a real cool one. We're going to have one Skype lesson with Andy Alador.
Wow.
That's whoever wins that, you're gonna thank us for it, because Andy Alador is probably one of the best instructors around. He's a wonderful friend of mine. He is an amazing guitar player. He knows his stuff, and one lesson with him, and you'll be much better off than you were without it. And we're going to be giving away a guitar, and it's going to have a professional setup by me. So I'm not going to tell you what the guitar is yet. We actually don't know what the guitar is going to be just yet, but we have one coming. And there will be other prizes. Those are the ones we have at the moment. But in order to be eligible to win any of these prizes, you have to subscribe to the David Nesdall YouTube channel, and just keep listening for how to win.
Nice.
Right.
And I'll throw in a signed copy of the Grandview Drive, the new record as well.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You heard it here, folks. Eric Steckel signed new CD.
Yeah, and you'll probably be, and if you're an American person who's going to win that, you would be the first American in the world to have the record, because it's not even out yet in this country. So that'll be kind of cool. So
thank you, Eric. That's
very cool.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
No problem. Pleasure.
Oh wow! So there you go. That's going to be the giveaway, which we'll talk about that on every show. We'll remind everyone, and hopefully we'll have more updates, and we'll let you know when the drawing will be and how we're going to draw it. I'm not even sure how we're doing that yet, but we'll figure it out. On that note, let's see, what else do we have? So there was a question earlier that we spoke about your amps and guitars. What are your favorite pedals to use? Do you use any at all? Do you use any modulation? I'm sure you don't use any overdrive because you got it all on the amp.
Right. Correct? Yeah, it's been many years since I've used an overdrive pedal. Voluntarily. There's those rare situations where you fly into a gig in whatever, Geneva or something, and it's a one-off gig, and you fly in with the guitar on your back, and you know there's going to be just a twin reverb there or something, or a bassman, and I'm forced to use a pedal. But that's extremely rare, especially because and I have to give a plug to Mezzabarba on this, because and I really sincerely mean this, because he's been, of all the amp companies that I've worked with, he's been the #1 guy about making sure I have what I need all over the world. Like, there's some amp companies that I've worked with where, you know, they send you free amps, but then that's great for when you're at home or you're touring in America. But then you go, well, okay, I tour in Europe and Australia. What am I going to do? And sometimes they say, you want to ship them? You know, that's like the best that they kind of do. And
Sure.
with Mezzabarba, he was like, no. You keep your amps. I'll make you some 220-volt European ones. I'll put them in a rack, and I'll make sure that you have it for your tours. And it's like, wow, you know, that's service. You know,
That doesn't get better than that.
That's really, yeah. And that's, I just have to make that known, that how great that is, because for people that are not in the music business, that is extremely rare at any level. Even if you're really big time, to have a company on their own dime send a huge, you know, 450-pound rig with cases and everything on their own dime. That's very cool. So anyways, so I don't really use overdrive pedals at all. The only pedals I use are in the effects loop of the amp. So I use nothing going into the front. So it's literally guitar, cable, input jack of the amp. And then I use one delay. Only that's the only thing I use. I use one delay pedal in the effects loop of the amp. Now I have multiple delays that I like, but I pick just one in that moment. Sure. So my top three right now, and they've been my top three for actually a few years, so I doubt it's going to change. The Guru's Echo Sex 3. Now, folks might know, if you're into boutique gear, you might have heard of the Guru's Echo Sex pedal. It's got a 12AX7 tube in it. It's basically an Echoplex, but you know, in a modern portable version. And the first Echo Sex units were like about this big, and he keeps making them smaller. So the 3, which just hit the market, I had one of the first ones, and it's just a really tiny pedal, but it still has the tube in it. You see it right there. It's glowing, but it's the size of like an overdrive box. And that's like my best one. And then I also have an old vintage Boss DD3 from the 80s, the old ones, killer. And I have a hardwired DL8, which is a Digitech pedal that don't sleep on that pedal. For folks that hear Digitech and go, no, don't sleep on that pedal. That thing is killer. Because Lexicon was making the chips for those. So if you want the Lexicon sound for like $100, get the DL8.
That's cool. Yeah, I actually have a buddy of mine who ordered me that Echo Sex 3 pedal. I have to go get it. I've been injured for so long. I haven't been able to drive, and now that I am able to walk again, actually today is the first day that I was able to walk without my walker, and I'm so excited to be part of living life again. But anyway, he's got that pedal over his house. I cannot wait to get it. I've been looking forward to it because he's been using it as well, and I heard it. I went to his house back before I got injured, and I was like, "What's that delay pedal?" He was like, "It's the Echo Sex 3," and I was like, I love it." He's like, "Well, I am friends with the company. I can get you one." So he got me one, and I just have yet to get it. So I'm really happy with that.
That pedal's cool because if you just turn it on at a nice low setting, so that way it doesn't intrude on your songs and your music, you just have it a nice delay that's not in the way of your music, but it's there. It'll enhance your tone. That pedal, because of the tube in it, it'll actually give you more tone than you already had. You know, and I mean, of course, you can use it for very dramatic settings and turn the damage knob up and get all kinds of weird effects. But if you use it like I use it, which is just, it's there, You hear it, but it's not overwhelming. It actually fattens up your tone.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you're playing live, and this is another question from the chat, and forgive me, I forgot who had asked it. When you play live, are you playing wet, dry, wet? Are you doing true stereo? Or are you just playing out of one cabinet? What's your rig? What's the whole rig?
95% of the time, it's just one cabinet. One cabinet. No wet, dry, wet. Just one cabinet, one head. Delay in the loop, and just straight up. There's been a few occasions where I was doing gigs where it was like promotional events for Mezza Barba.
Mm-hmm.
So I did in November, I did a tour of Italy, and but it was like sponsored by Mezza Barba. Like, he booked the gigs. So I just showed up with candy, and he like supplied the equipment, like the rig. And he wired it up every night as like a wet, dry, wet, like kind of thing. And it was killer. It was great. But you know, as killer as it was, I don't feel that my regular rig, I don't ever feel like I'm on stage going, oh, I need that wet, dry, wet. Like, it's honestly, I'm happy with just going straight in, just with one cab sometimes too. So yeah,
cool.
Keep it simple. And it's also easy for sound checks because my sound check takes 5 minutes. I turn the amp on. Does it work? Yep. Cool. We're good. That's it.
Yeah. Ben Rossum asks, the Echo 6, does it give you a decibel boost as well?
Not that I've noticed.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, not that I've noticed.
Oh, Ty, I'm sorry, Ty. You answered that for me.
That's all right. Yeah, I have one. I know.
Sorry about that. Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Now, but to be honest, though, I've never run it into the front.
No, I don't either.
I would never do that. Yeah.
So I don't know, you know, if guys that play clean and that they run it in the front. If you have an old Fender Deluxe or something and you want to run it in the front, maybe it does. But in the loop, I never heard any kind of boost effect with it.
No, me neither.
So this is a question that Ty and I have been asking our guests.
Yeah.
Since this is our third one. This is our third show.
Oh, okay.
So what's your favorite guitar? What's your best guitar? And are they one and the same?
Wow. My best guitar is my black satin KNAGGS Steckel model. That's the heavy one that we were talking about. The one that was actually about 8.3 or 8.4 pounds. Yeah. That's the one on the Grandview Drive album, the new album coming out. That guitar is probably 90% of the record is that guitar.
Wow.
Yeah, because what we did, so the engineer, even though I produced the records, I'm very close with the engineer that I've done. And my last like 4 or 5 records have been recorded at the same place with the same engineer. So me and him are like this. So he knows exactly what I want to hear, and I know what he wants to hear. So when we do we take a whole day where we just do guitar sounds and try to find like the best thing. And basically what happened was on the Grandview Drive tracking sessions, I went in there with 4 amps and like 7 guitars. So the 4 amps were my old Diesel Herbert, my white panel one, my Mark II, my Mezza Barba M0, and 2 Trinities. And I'll tell you why 2 Trinities. There's a new and an old Trinity. Basically, here's the deal. So the Trinity, he did a mod a few months ago on all the new Trinities coming out. And I don't know the extent of exactly what the mod is, but it just added even more sweetness to the top end. Not that it really needed it, but I'm certainly not going to turn it down, you know? So it made the top end even more dumbly. So I had my new and then my old Trinity. So those were the 4 amps. And I had all of my KNAGGS, every KNAGGS that I own. And basically the combination that everyone in the room kind of just went like this was the black matte finish Knaggs into the new Trinity. That was the that was the setup that everybody just went like, man, that's it. So
I wonder if the satin finish has anything to do with that.
I don't know. That black guitar is, now I'll tell you though, it's not my easiest one to play. But it's definitely, out of all my Knaggs, that freaking guitar is the chunk. It's so chunky. It has so much bass, so much low end. It's just, it's for what I do, it's perfect. Now for guys that, if you're playing more traditional blues or country, it might be too much bass for you. But for what I do, man, that black one is like, it's a gem.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So today I saw a video of you playing with Andy Aladort doing a blues song in a very small club. Now, I may be mistaken, but you were playing out of a PV Bandit 65?
Oh my God. Yeah, not by choice. Not by choice.
I'm so sorry to laugh. Andy's using like a 68 super reverb silver panel, and the other guitar player, who, forgive me, I don't know his name, he's playing out of a vintage deluxe reverb, and you play out of a Bandit. And but you sounded fantastic.
Hey, well, great players play great. Yeah,
sounded fantastic. Your guitar was like huffing and puffing. Candy was huffing and puffing just a little bit.
Right. It was Candy. That's right.
Candy was huffing and puffing, but man, not one bad note. You smiled the whole way. You had the whole thing working for you, and your solo is pretty slamming.
Thank you. That's funny because that was a total spur of the moment. I got the call for that gig the day of, so that was the reason why I didn't have an amp. Was a couple reasons. So I was out there. That was the LA amp show. That's why I was in LA. Was that panel I did with Phil X and Joe Bonamassa and all those guys, and the LA amp show. So that's why I was out there. And because it was the LA amp show, I didn't need to bring any amps. I just flew out there from Chicago with just Candy. All I had was Candy and the shirt on my back, basically. So I go out there, and Andy had just put out the Stevie Ray Vaughan book.
Yes.
And there's a great friend of mine that I've known for 10 years now. He goes by the Cadillac Zach, and he's a blues promoter in Southern California. And him and I have worked together for years. And he basically saw, I guess, on Facebook or something that I was in town. And he calls me at like 5 in the afternoon or 4 in the afternoon, whatever, and says, "Hey, I got Andy Aladort doing this Stevie Ray Vaughan party tonight. Are you free tonight?" And I said, yeah, I'm free. And he says, "Man, come out. I'll pay you. Come out and just do a song. Just do a song or two with Andy." And I said, "Oh, sure, man." I said, "What are the songs? What do I need?" He said, "I don't know. Just show up." Story of my life, you know. Mm-hmm. So I show up places. By the time I got there, place was already packed. They're already playing. I got there a little late, so they're already playing. And Andy kind of sees me walk in. He gives me a little nod, and I'm back by the pool table there, just getting my guitar out of the gig bag. And you know, I don't know. First of all I know is that I got my guitar. I don't know what's up there on stage. I don't even know if there's a cable for me. I don't know what's going on. It's chaos. The place is like, I think the place holds 100 people, and there were like 200 in there. It was ridiculous. I could barely get to the stage. So Andy calls me up, and I go up there, and you know, okay, you've seen the movie Planes, Trains, Automobiles?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
You know that scene where they walk into the hotel room and they see there's one bed?
Yeah.
And that music, that dude.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I walk up to the stage, and I see my only option is a PV Bandit. And I'm hearing that music from that scene, that like horror, you know, I'm like, oh my God. And I had no pedals with me because I wasn't supposed to be playing any gigs. It was only promotional stuff. So I didn't bring any pedals. Yeah. So, but to be totally fair, I actually enjoy these moments because it really tests you as a player. And if you can entertain and move an audience, even in those conditions, then you're you can play anything then. You know what I mean?
Well, it was a true testament to that exactly
Yep.
because not only did you sound good, you looked like you were having a great time. You were probably like killing yourself on the inside because you had to hear it, but it was seamless to everyone, and even to me. I was like, man, that PB Bandit sounds like that. That's not bad.
Yeah, I know. It sounded great.
Maybe I'll go buy one tomorrow. And I'm like, no, I owned one. That was one of my first amps. That was one of my first amps, and that is a harsh sounding amp, and you just killed it.
You owned it.
Well, you know, it's you know, I think one of the things about being a well-rounded and a good professional guitarist, and when I say professional, I mean that very specifically, because you have to be able to work in situations outside of your comfort zone. So, like, look, I don't play the neck pickup much, but guess what? I was playing it there.
You did it.
I don't play, like, I'll give you an example. So, like, a lot of times, part of my technique is that I play back here by the bridge a lot, and that works for the setup that I normally use. But in this situation that we're talking about, I was on the neck pickup, and I was playing real close to the neck, you know, because that's how you get the more round, smoother tone when you're playing through a really harsh amp. Is play closer, and some of this is pretty self-explanatory, but for some folks maybe it isn't. You know, play closer to that neck pickup, play further up, closer to the neck. You know, darken, do what you can to darken your playing, because the amp is so bright. So you got to darken it coming out of your instrument.
Yeah.
So you just use your skills and your knowledge and your training and your expertise, and it's just like a great athlete or a guy who's, like, you know, in special black ops, or what, you know, what you use your training and what you've learned to just say, okay, these conditions are not favorable, but I got to make it happen. I got to make it happen.
Yeah. So Jimmy Biter says, what's wrong with a Bandit? There's nothing wrong with the Bandit. Let me tell you something. There's nothing wrong with it if you're using it in the house as a practice amp, or if even if you're gigging with it. But the reason I made a big deal of it is because Andy Aladort was using a vintage Fender Super Reverb. The third guitar player was using a vintage deluxe reverb, Fender Deluxe Reverb. Yep. And then there's poor Eric having to use this 25-watt Little Bandit amplifier, transistor solid state amplifier. Right. That's what's wrong with it in that case. Right. I'm not putting it down. Yeah. It's just in that case, it was like he got the short straw, and you know what? He ended up sounding like he had the biggest straw of all of them. Because and I love Andy Aladort. He's been one of my best friends for over 30 years. He lives, I can walk to his house from here. Wow. I can borrow any of his gear, that I ever need, that I would ever need it. He's borrowed so much of my gear. I've played his 61 Stratocaster. I've played all of that stuff. And, all that being said, what he just played, what Eric played, sounded killer. Poor Andy had probably the best rig there, and he was the lowest volume of all of them. Yeah. Couldn't hear.
And that venue is certainly that's certainly not Carnegie Hall. That place, it's just it's what's cool about that place, the Sugar Mill, and people that don't understand, like people that just see it on YouTube or whatever. See, one of the things I've always heard from people is they're like, why would like Slash and Joe Bonamassa and guys play this little dumpy place? And what people don't understand is, in the Los Angeles music scene, that place has a pedigree. Like, that place it's right off of the 101 freeway, and the guy who promotes it, Cadillac Zach, is friends with like real heavyweight like rock stars. And so guys that play stadiums normally, they might be home for a couple weeks, and they say, let's go out and have some fun at a little smoky blues bar, and that's what they do. So that's why that place gets the players it gets, even though it's basically a dump.
Very nice.
But very also, cool. Just to answer we're talking about the Bandit. The thing is, it's not that there's anything wrong with the Bandit. It's that it just doesn't give you anything. It's just like it gets you from point A to point. It's just like an economy car. It moves, it runs, but it gives you nothing. It just amplifies sound, and but not in a nice way. It just takes what you're putting into it and spits it out in loudness, and that's it. So I guess that's the problem with it, if I had to say,
Very nice.
All right. I'll take that one. It's not the right one, but that's okay.
Oh my God. This
Hey,
This is just one that I built.
nice.
Frankenstein. Actually, this one's sold. I'm waiting for someone to come get it. He hasn't gotten it yet, though.
Nice.
Still in tune. Don't worry about it. I'll play this.
They're all striped.
My fiance says they're all striped. I was like, "Can you get me my 5150 guitar?" Because she's sitting off camera here. And I was like, "Can you get me my 5150?" And she's like, "Which one is that?" Never mind. Striped. Very funny. Anyway, so let's see. Anyone else have any questions for Eric?
I saw a question earlier. Eric, what string gauges and picks do you use?
Right. So I use 10 to 46. I've been using the GHS, the boomers, but with the coating, like the coated boomers.
Right.
What's cool about those, like I used elixirs for years because I like the whole like coated aspect, and I could get a lot of length or a lot of gigs out of one set. But they were the first show or two with elixirs. They were quite bright. And when I started working with GHS, I told them that, and they were like, "Well, if you try our coated ones, it's got the same feel as the elixir, but it's not. It's going to sound right out of the box." And they were right; it does. So it sounds like a regular non-coated string, but it's coated, so it's like perfect. And then for picks, I just use these the purple the 1.14 extra heavy Dunlops.
Yep.
Oh, those are very cool picks. Yeah.
Yeah, I order these by I get these in by the box. So I throw them out at gigs and I lose them, whatever. So
sure.
Yeah. Now, do you have any signature picks with your name on them?
I do. Yeah, we sell them. We sell them at the merch booth after the shows. I don't. They're with all my gear in storage right now. All my merch and my gear is in. But yes, we have. And the new picks we have are actually. They are the album cover of Grandview Drive, the new album. It's the same thing on the pick. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Now, as a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, do you play with the long part of the pick or do you rotate the pick? Play with the fatter part on the back end?
Most of the time I play normal. I play with the point. But for all the pinch harmonics and squeals, and I do a lot of those, I am turning the pick a lot. But I don't ever purposely use like the butt end of the pick. But what'll happen, to be honest though, sometimes I'll look down and it's almost, because I'm turning it so much that sometimes it gets close to almost using the back end of it, but not intentionally. I always start like this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot with me too. I have a problem with my thumb, as you can see. It's this nasty thing on it. I can't feel the end of my thumb, so it rotates as I'm playing. And there was a while where I couldn't even play with a pick. I couldn't hold one because it hurt.
Right.
Now, now I'm using these Dava picks because it's got this rubber on it, and it sticks nicely. So
yeah. I think the thing that people give me most, like the thing that fans give me the most, is various picks that they like. When I'm at NAMM, I can't tell you, like the typical day for me walking through the halls of NAMM is fans coming up to me, giving me a guitar pick that they discovered or that they like. And I mean, I'm not saying that it's cool. I like it. It's funny. But I remember whenever I come back from NAMM, all my jeans have like all these different guitar picks in them from people just handing me picks. And some of them are really cool. Some of them are not my style, but some of them are cool. There's some picks from Japan that some guy gave me. I can't remember what they are, but they were really cool. And so sometimes people give me some really cool stuff that I never heard of,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Very cool. So, Ty, is there anything else that you want to talk about? Any other questions for Eric before we say goodnight?
really looking forward to the new record.
Yeah, you
Thank
ain't kidding. Me too.
Writing, recording, playing all the instruments. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a rarity today. And then the voice that you have on the instrument, also a rarity, that you've brought this modern blues context,
Right.
this blues metal context into your playing. Very unique voice that you have. Yeah, very creative. So really looking forward to that.
I think on this record, like I think on the Polyphonic Prayer record, we started to get down the blues metal road, and I think on the new one, what I think you'll hear and what folks will hear is you can hear that I've how do I put this? Like I've my vocabulary in that blues metal thing is definitely more complete now. Like I think you'll hear that the concept is really coming into fruition now. Like you'll hear that blues metal thing really clearly on this record.
Well, that's exciting. That's exciting.
Yeah, and the way we produce this, like I think for so many years I was always a bit afraid to I always held back a little bit on the production end of I didn't want certain things to be produced too modern or too heavy, only for fear of like maybe traditional blues folks being I guess you went offended or something, like just not digging it. And what I said to the engineer on this one, I said, you know what, we're not going to think like that this time. We're going to make it sound the way the songs need to sound, and I'll deal with whatever consequences may come. And what you have is definitely a bigger, more 80s sounding production on this record.
Awesome.
That's exciting.
That's my favorite era. I think we're gonna take one more question from the chat, and it's Eric. What's the coolest gift that a fan has ever given you?
Wow. Somebody. Well, okay. This has been more than one person, but people have painted or drawn things of me, and framed them and given them to me in the merch line. And I have them all scattered about. I have some here. I have some in Chicago. I have, just in different places. I think I even have one somewhere in Europe at my bass player's place. So I have different, all these things that people have handmade, just handcrafted art that people have made of me, which is really, it's really cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So how do people get in touch with you? How do you have, how do people find you?
Well, I'm everywhere. So if you just Google my name, and even if you spell it wrong, it'll correct you. And then from there, you just branch out. I mean, we got the official website. We got Facebook, Instagram. I don't do Twitter because I say what I need to say on Facebook and Instagram. And that's I don't need to say anymore. The music is on Spotify. And then if you want to, actually for real, buy the stuff, Amazon, iTunes, other, Google Play, all that stuff. Basically anywhere that an artist can be, I'm there.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
I want to, for the both of us, really thank you so much for being on the show with us tonight. It was really a pleasure. It's been a pleasure getting to know you this week. I feel that you and I have this, like, where we can just call each other. It's very cool.
Man.
And really, you've become a hero of mine so fast, and without sounding like a fanboy, because
right. Yeah.
It's really, really great to know you, and I mean you're amazing guitar.
Yeah, you're carrying the torch, inspiring younger players to discover this genre in a different way.
Yeah,
that's the goal, man. That's the goal. I mean, it's cool when when I'm on stage and you look out, especially in Europe, you look out and you see, the younger, the 20, 30 some, crowd. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so that's pretty much the show. Stick around, don't go anywhere. If you guys, anyone in the chat or anyone that you guys know, if anyone wants a guitar set up, or you want me to build you a guitar, please contact me at theguitarwhisperer.guru. That's Guitar Whisperer, WHISPERER.guru. You can check out, I have photos of stuff that I've built in the past. There's a contact area where you can tell me what you'd like, or if you want to ask me any questions, leave your phone number or an email address. I'll get right back to you and we can discuss it. You can check me out on Facebook and on Instagram as well. Ty, thank you so much for doing this with me every week. You're the best.
Pleasure to be with you, Dave. And Eric, so nice to meet you. Such a fan of what you're doing. You're writing, you're playing, and the perseverance. It's inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
And I want to especially thank Ty for this. And with this, I'm going to say good night for all of us.